About 1 year ago, Down The Freeman came out, and it became a gigantic dumpster fire. They set out to bring us a new unexplored chapter of the Half-Life universe, through a unique perspective in a new style of storytelling, unlike what we had seen from Valve. Well, it turned out to be very special indeed. Let us hear what I had to say right after it came out. The story is such a poor cringe fest of fanfiction level writing that free mods like Trump Quest look like a professional release in comparison. The advertised parkour mechanics are barely working, and of course they are thrown into the game without any explanation of how they are supposed to work. Tutorial levels are something many people like to skip, but if you include mechanics that are not standard in the Half-Life games, you should at least, out of common sense, provide some hint that they exist. The game features a night vision device. Naturally, one would assume that you press F for flashlight or N for night vision, but here you select it like a weapon and put it on. That took quite a while till I found that out. And talking about weapons, there are quite a few. Nice, I am especially a fan of the hovering pistol. The game's main character has the amazing magic ability to make pistols float in the air. I want that too, that's cool. But back to level design, which is the work of a dozen or so mappers that have been assigned with a task to build levels for a game that seemingly did not have a real goal in mind of what they want. Where the first level in some places looks actually fairly fine, the following chapters are a grand display of total ineptitude and amateurish design. If this is supposed to be the final product, sit down and start over please. Admittedly, a harsh sentence, which I stand by. After the disastrous launch, they claimed to have released an outdated version, which was not too hard to believe, as the launch version was a broken mess. Unplayable levels, missing models, outdated graph nodes, unlinked level triggers, generally unfinished was an understatement. Now, 1 year later, let us give them another chance and see if they have released the version that they meant to release originally. Judging by the Steam reviews, they must have somewhat improved. And if not, I will see if I can refund the game a second time. Now as the price significantly decreased, I assume more people gave it a go. Overall, the improvements are marginal. However, now the game runs without crashing, which does not mean that the performance is good. It utilizes the source engine, which means it should run fine on a calculator wired to a dishwasher. But even with a GTX 1070, you experience lags in absolutely empty levels. Which brings me to the next point. The level design. It is something I heavily criticized because it was wildly inconsistent. And a year later, it still is. You have areas that certainly meet the standards of the original, or even Black Mesa source. Yet even areas that have gotten revamped, like this lobby, still underwhelm. And even the Cinema 4D texture test room elevator is still there. An amazing set piece that leads right into a stairwell which I would like to name the Gold Source Memorial Stairwell. Games from the 90s outdesign this boringness, lit with overbright light entities placed too close to the surfaces. It is even missing lamps, so the light appears to be coming out of nowhere. It looks as if the level designer abandoned working on this section altogether and someone hastily slapped on some textures to the walls for the final release. Another capital sin I haven't even mentioned in my original video is the incredibly bad copy of City 17. They ripped off Half-Life 2's intro section's geometry, but instead of just decompiling and redesigning it to demonstrate the time that has passed since the happenings of the first game, they decided to copy the design in what I can only describe as a slack job. You see, Ivan, this is source engine. That is why you not need visual representation of light source, because source is all around of you.
God, that was shit.
The old 2004 game looks vastly superior to this beginner training exercise. Not only that the lighting is completely ruined, also the texture placement and scaling is amateurish. You really notice that the people who worked on this have no experience in working with the source engine, which is something that really leaves a sour taste in your mouth when you consider that they are charging money for this. Another example of the designer's inexperience is the snow level. Ignore the empty level, because there's nothing more going on here, it's just a vast empty space. Also ignore the ridiculously low texture resolution. Just listen. Does this sound like walking through snow? No, someone forgot to give the textures the correct parameters, so the snow just sounds like concrete floor. What they did correct, however, are some of the overly ambitious reflections. They toned it down here and there. Other minor bugs still remain, and NPCs still feel a bit broken at times. A huge portion of the criticism focused on the new mechanics, such as the parkour elements. While they are in theory a cool addition, the execution is anything but satisfying. The irritatingly shaking animations aside, a problem that the game generally deals with, they are often clunky and fiddly to get to work. They do not feel natural in any way. Like a silly Gmod edition, not like a feature for a proper game. Adding to that, originally they were not explained whatsoever. In the newer version, they included a tutorial, which was, let's say, inspired by Half-Life Opposing Force, but not merely done as well as Gearbox's expansion pack to Half-Life.
Rise and shine, ladies! My name is Senior Drill Instructor Dwight T. Barnes. The first and last words I want to hear out of your stinking holes is, sir. Do I make myself clear? Sir, yes, sir!
Senior Drill Instructor George L. Garrison. The first and last word I want to hear from your filthy mouths is, sir. Do you maggots understand?
Yes, sir!
Senior Drill Instructor Garrison, what the fuck is wrong with your eyes? How the hell did you become a United States Marine? And what the devil is wrong with your recruits? Why does none of them have pupils? Is everyone here blind? And you boy, that hair is not up to the grooming standard. Get that fixed ASAP!
They show you some messages on the screen telling you what to do, commented by a voice coming to you through a radio. About halfway through the tutorial, the comments stop, and with it, the text commands telling you what to do. Until the tutorial abruptly ends after a shooting range that lacks any instructions or instructor. The new tutorial shows the characteristic features of Hunt Down the Freeman. That is, being unfinished and only half-heartedly cobbled together. So, Hunt Down the Freeman 1 year later? Has it improved? Yes, but only marginally. I do not count being playable as a real improvement. That is the bare minimum. The addition of a tutorial and slight visual improvements do count, but in the end of the day, they do not justify a purchase in my opinion. I would still not recommend it. The whole project Hunt Down the Freeman came out to be a gigantic clusterfuck. The guy who initiated the whole project hasn't been heard of in months, and seemingly all work on the project has halted, with one lone soldier fighting on and trying to save what is left. Hunt Down the Freeman could have been a cool game, a fun little thing to spend your time on, a cool spin-off made by fans. But as it turns out to be a case of biting off more than you can chew. Coordinating a bunch of people to work on a big project is hard work, especially if not all of them are professionals. I have had some insight into smaller development projects, and they can be a real tough nut to crack. Free mods and even full-on sold games falling apart over creative differences or personal fights. I can sympathize with the developers behind Hunt Down the Freeman in a sense that they all set out to create a cool thing and they saw it all falling apart in front of them. But then again, my sympathy fades away when I realize that they knew their product wasn't good, was not finished and an unpolished mess. And yet they went on to try and sell it for $20 at first. Thank God for Steam refunds. And I'll say it once again, Valve, you guys need quality control on Steam. Seriously. You know, I'm right at the end of making this video. It's almost done, but here's something I wanted to add. I noticed that while recording footage for the video, the walking animations are way more annoying to me than they were about a year ago. I'm not sure if there's something wrong with my glasses recently, or if I'm just getting older, who knows. Anyways, these wobbly animations are incredibly annoying, and they're causing me a headache. And I've heard from several other people that they're getting headaches too. I don't know what they thought about adding these incredibly exaggerated walking animations. I mean, the very first Half-Life had these little shifting movements in the camera when you walk to the left and right, and that was kind of fine and dynamic, and I know A lot of people found that to be annoying, and in the more modern Half-Life builds this is gone. But this is really too extreme for my opinion. And it gets especially annoying when you're in these gigantic open levels where you just have to run around and find the exit because the game fails to guide you to the nearest exit because, well, in my opinion, Half-Life games should be rather straightforward. Well, one could call it a corridor game, but yeah, it's what Half-Life has always been. It's been rather linear and straightforward. And in Hunt Down the Freeman, you often find yourself looking for the nearest exit to the level or where to continue because the game just fails you to tell you where you are and where you have to go. And that leads you to run around quite a lot, especially in the ice level where you just walk for literally minutes just through vastly open spaces with horrible textures. And there these duck-like walking animations become quite apparent. Even worse it is when you have to climb somewhere because there's really a violent rocking animation and that's just not pleasant to look at. So yeah, this last part was just something I wanted to throw in at the end because I just thought of it. And yeah, I thought it should be mentioned in the end. Anyways, this Hunt Down the Freeman game has just been a gigantic disappointment to me and I guess everyone who was kind of looking forward to it. And even to a lot of people who worked on this, for example the guy who made the Source Filmmaker animations, published all the animations later on YouTube in the finished form. For some reason they did not include them in the game. And stuff like that happened a lot of times with Hunt Down the Freeman. In the end of the day, I guess the creators were well-meaning people who just fucked it up because it was too much to handle. And then instead of coming forward and saying, hey, yeah, I fucked it up, they just disappeared. So, that's it. Hunt Down the Freeman. A great example of what not to do when developing a game. At least they gave us some good memes. Like, you fucked up my face. Oh yeah, and by the way, you remember the Black Mesa thing? The guy re-recorded all the G-Man lines, but they didn't put it in the game. For God knows what reason. Yeah, I guess they fucked up his voice. Which is a shame, because the voice actor did a damn fine job of impersonating the G-Man. Sounded pretty close to the original. But anyways, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the look back at this masterpiece to be interesting. Special thanks goes out to all of our supporters on Patreon, who of course got to see this video first. Until next time, have a nice day, and as always, goodbye and guten Tag. P.S. A little suggestion. If you are looking for a Half-Life experience, play the hundreds of free mods out there. You'll have a better time with it than with Hunt Down the Freeman, I promise.